The distress signal. The deep space monitoring station orbited Titan like a silent guardian, its massive sensor arrays constantly scanning the void between stars. Dr. Sarah Chen sat at her workstation in the communications bay, watching streams of data flow across multiple screens. The night shift at Titan Station was usually quiet, filled only with the hum of life support systems and the distant rumble of the reactor core. Sarah had been analyzing background radiation patterns for 3 hours when something unusual caught her attention. A signal emerged from the cosmic noise, weak but persistent, carrying patterns that made her heart race. She leaned forward, adjusting her headset, as the station's quantum computers began processing the transmission. The signal was unlike anything in Earth's databases. It carried the unmistakable signature of intelligence, but the origin was completely unknown. Sarah's fingers moved quickly across her control panel, isolating the signal and running it through every translation protocol humanity had developed. Computer, enhance signal clarity and run xenolinguistic analysis, Sarah commanded. The artificial intelligence responded immediately, its processing power focused on decoding the mysterious transmission. Minutes passed as Sarah watched probability matrices and language pattern recognition algorithms work to unlock the message's meaning. When the translation finally appeared on her screen, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She read the words twice, then 3 times, before the full weight of their meaning settled in. Her hands trembling slightly, she activated the emergency communication system. "Admiral Torres to communications bay immediately," Sarah announced over the station intercom. "Priority Alpha situation." Admiral Marcus Torres arrived within minutes, his gray hair disheveled from sleep, but his eyes sharp with concern. At 62, Torres had spent 4 decades protecting humanity's expanding presence in space. He had seen pirates, corporate wars, and natural disasters, but nothing had prepared him for what Sarah was about to show him. "What do you have for me, Doctor?" Torres asked, settling into the chair beside Sarah's workstation. Sarah played the translated message through the speakers. An alien voice filled the communication bay, carrying tones of desperation and fear that transcended species barriers. The translation scrolled across the main display as the voice spoke. "This is Prime Scholar Zith of the Zephyrian Republic. We transmit this message to any civilization capable of receiving it. Our worlds are under attack by the Vorthok Empire. They have already destroyed 3 of our outer colonies. 8 million of our people remain on our homeworld of Zephyr Prime. The Vorthok fleet grows stronger each day. We are a peaceful people with no military forces. We seek not warriors to fight our battles, but compassionate beings to help evacuate our population before the final assault begins. We estimate 14 standard cycles before complete planetary bombardment. If any who hear this message possess the means and will to assist, we offer our knowledge, our friendship, and our eternal gratitude." The message ended, leaving the communication bay in profound silence. Torres stared at the speakers, his weathered face reflecting years of command decisions. He had authorized military actions, resource allocations, and exploration missions, but this was different. This was a request for humanity to step beyond its own borders and help complete strangers. "How far away are they?" Torres asked quietly. Sarah checked her calculations. "Approximately 18 days at maximum FTL velocity, Admiral. If we push our newest engines, maybe 16 days. Torres nodded slowly. 14 days before the aliens' final destruction, 16 days for human ships to reach them. The mathematics were brutally simple. Send this transmission to Earth Fleet Command immediately. Use quantum burst communication, highest priority encoding. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Catherine Wells received the transmission in her office overlooking the Atlantic Ocean from the Luna City military complex. The 70-year-old commander had overseen humanity's expansion into space for the past decade, building the fleet that now protected dozens of human colonies across nearby star systems. Wells played the alien message 3 times before calling an emergency session of the Defense Council. Within 2 hours, Earth's most senior military leaders had assembled in the secure conference room deep beneath Luna City. The Zephyrian plea echoed through the chamber, followed by intense debate. "We have no intelligence about this Vorthek Empire," stated General Patricia Hayes, head of Fleet Intelligence. "For all we know, they possess technology that could destroy our entire fleet." Commander Robert Singh, leader of the Engineering Corps, leaned forward. "Our ships were designed for the unknown, General. Every system has multiple redundancies. Every weapon has been tested against theoretical alien defenses." Admiral Wells stood and activated the holographic display, showing human fleet positions throughout local space. Red indicators marked the 3 battle groups capable of immediate deployment. Thunder's Hammer, consisting of heavy battleships designed for prolonged engagements. Swift Strike, featuring fast attack cruisers built for rapid response. And Guardian Shield, comprising massive support vessels equipped for evacuation and humanitarian operations. Recommendations, Wells asked simply. The debate continued for hours, but Wells had already reached her decision. 8 million innocent beings faced extinction, and humanity possessed the capability to help. The moral equation was clear, even if the tactical situation remained uncertain. "We deploy all 3 battle groups," Wells announced. "Full humanitarian mission with military escort. We leave Earth orbit in 36 hours. Across the Sol system, the mobilization began immediately. In shipyards around Mars, crews worked around the clock preparing vessels for combat. The massive battleships of Thunder's Hammer underwent final weapons checks and armor inspections. The sleek cruisers of Swift Strike loaded extended-range supplies and additional ammunition. The enormous cargo vessels of Guardian Shield were rapidly converted to carry refugees instead of equipment. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her flagship, the battleship Indomitable, watching her crew prepare for humanity's first interstellar rescue mission. She had commanded vessels in the asteroid belt conflicts and the outer system pirate wars, but nothing compared to the scope of this operation. "How many evacuees can we handle?" Vasquez asked her chief engineer. 40,000 per transport if we pack them efficiently, Captain, replied Chief Engineer Maria Santos. "Not comfortable, but they'll survive the journey." Lieutenant Commander Jake Patterson prepared his reconnaissance vessel, Shadowrunner, for immediate departure. His mission was critical but dangerous. Reach the Zephyrian system ahead of the main fleet and assess enemy capabilities without being detected. "We'll be operating completely alone out there," Patterson told his crew of 12 specialists. "No backup, no support, just us and whatever we find." His weapons officer, Lieutenant Annie Rodriguez, checked their stealth systems one final time. "How do we know these Zephyrians are telling the truth? This could be an elaborate trap." Patterson considered this possibility. The fear in the alien voices had seemed genuine, but deception was always possible. "We don't know for certain. But if they're lying and we're careful, we might escape. If they're telling the truth and we do nothing, 8 million people die." Back at Titan Station, Sarah continued monitoring the transmissions. The messages were becoming more frequent and increasingly desperate. The Zephyrians reported Vorthek reconnaissance ships arriving daily, mapping their defenses and cataloging their cities. Children's voices could be heard in the background, asking questions their parents couldn't answer. A new transmission came through, this one from a different speaker. The voice was younger, filled with barely controlled terror. "This is Medical Supervisor Keth of the Zephyrian Health Council. Vorthek ground forces have landed on our outer moon. They are taking our people for purposes we cannot comprehend. We do not understand their motivation. We have offered them all our resources, our technology, our cooperation. They respond only with violence. If anyone receives this message, please remember that we existed. Remember that we tried to choose peace." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. She had never seen these aliens, knew nothing about their culture or appearance, but their suffering had become deeply personal. Across human space, similar reactions thread through the crews preparing for departure. This was no longer just a military operation. It had become a moral imperative that spoke to the deepest values of human civilization. The fleet launched from Earth orbit precisely 36 hours after Admiral Wells' authorization. 57 ships in total, carrying the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. As the vessels engaged their FTL drives and disappeared into hyperspace, they carried with them the hopes of both species and the determination that had driven humans to survive on one of the galaxy's most dangerous worlds. Admiral Torres, now aboard the command ship Defiance, watched the stars shift as they entered hyperspace. In 16 days, they would discover whether humanity's first act of interstellar compassion would end in salvation or disaster. The only certainty was that they would not abandon the Zephyrians to face extinction alone. The Deathworlders were coming, and they brought with them everything that made humanity both dangerous and noble. Into the unknown. The human fleet cut through hyperspace like arrows fired into the dark. For 14 days, 57 ships traveled through the void between stars, carrying the hopes of two species toward an uncertain confrontation. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching status reports stream in from across the fleet. Every ship remained operational, every crew member focused on the mission ahead. Lieutenant Commander Patterson's reconnaissance vessel, Shadowrunner, had been running silent for the past 6 days, gathering intelligence on the Zephyrian system from the edge of sensor range. The data he transmitted back painted a picture of overwhelming enemy superiority. The Vorthak Empire had assembled a massive fleet around Zephyr Prime, over 200 warships ranging from massive dreadnoughts to fast attack vessels. They're not just planning genocide, Patterson reported during his latest transmission. They're making a statement. This is a demonstration of power meant to terrify other species into surrender. Captain Vasquez reviewed the intelligence data in her ready room aboard the Indomitable. The Vorthak ships were larger than human vessels, their technology apparently more advanced in some areas. But the reports also revealed something important. The enemy was overconfident. Their formations spread wide around the planet with minimal defensive coordination. They're not expecting a fight, Vasquez told her senior officers during the strategy briefing. They've been crushing defenseless civilizations for so long, they've forgotten how to face real opposition. Chief Engineer Santos brought up the technical analysis. Their ships are built for intimidation and overwhelming firepower, but they lack redundant systems. Our vessels are designed to survive damage and keep fighting. We're built by people who come from a world that tries to kill us every day. The human advantage wasn't in superior weapons or larger ships. It was in the fundamental philosophy behind their technology. Every human vessel was designed to endure, to function even when damaged, to keep fighting when any reasonable species would surrender. This resilience came from humanity's origin on Earth, a planet where survival required constant adaptation and determination. 3 days before the fleet's arrival, the Shadowrunner intercepted a Zephyrian transmission directly from the planet's surface. Prime Scholar Zith's voice carried exhaustion and fading hope as he described the final preparations for planetary bombardment. But hidden within his words was crucial tactical information about Vorthak deployment patterns and timing. They gather their forces for a synchronized attack, the transmission revealed. All ships will approach from the day side of our world, creating a spectacle of destruction visible to our entire population. They wish us to see death approaching, to know that resistance is futile. Admiral Torres smiled grimly as he processed this intelligence. The Vorthak Empire's desire for theatrical destruction had revealed their primary weakness, predictability. Every conquered species had been given the same terrifying display, which meant human forces could anticipate exactly how the enemy would position themselves. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge precisely 16 days after departing Earth. The massive force remained hidden behind a gas giant's radiation shadow while final preparations began. Admiral Torres addressed all 57 ships simultaneously, his voice carried to every human crew member preparing for battle. Today we do something that has never been done before. We fight not for territory, not for resources, not for our own survival, but because it's the right thing to do. The Zephyrians called out to the galaxy in their darkest hour, and we answered. We are about to face an enemy that has never known defeat, but they have never faced Deathworlders before. The plan was audaciously simple. Thunder's hammer would attack the Vorthok fleet from above the planetary plane, drawing their attention and engaging their heaviest ships. Swift Strike would circle behind the enemy formation, targeting their command vessels and creating chaos in their ranks. Guardian Shield would use the confusion to approach Zephyr Prime directly, evacuating as many civilians as possible before the planet became a battlefield. Captain Vasquez led Thunder's hammer into the attack, 12 heavy battleships emerging from hyperspace directly above the Vorthok fleet. The enemy responded exactly as predicted, turning their massive firepower toward this unexpected threat. The battle began with a thunderous exchange of energy weapons and kinetic projectiles that lit up the space around Zephyr Prime. The Indomitable shuddered under enemy fire, her armor plating absorbing impacts that would have destroyed lesser vessels. Vasquez watched her damage reports with satisfaction. Her ship was hurt but still fighting, her weapon systems continuing to pour destruction into the enemy formation. Target their largest ships first, Vasquez ordered. Show them what happens when they threaten innocents. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Patterson led Swift Strike in a flanking maneuver that caught the Vorthok completely off guard. His fast cruisers struck at the enemy's command structure, their precision attacks disrupting communications and coordination throughout the alien fleet. They're not used to enemies who think tactically, Patterson reported as his ships danced between the larger Vorthok vessels. They rely on brute force and intimidation. They don't know how to respond to coordinated strategy. Guardian Shield seized the opportunity created by their military escorts. The massive transport ships descended toward Zephyr Prime, their cargo bays configured to receive refugees. The first contact between humans and Zephyrians occurred not in a diplomatic chamber, but in evacuation centers as desperate families boarded human vessels. Prime Scholar Zith stood in the transport bay of the rescue ship Sanctuary, watching human crew members help Zephyrian children aboard. The aliens were tall and graceful, with large eyes that reflected both intelligence and terror. But as they saw humans working tirelessly to save them, hope began to replace fear. "Why do you risk yourselves for strangers?" Zith asked Captain Morrison, the Sanctuary's commander. Morrison paused in his coordination of the evacuation to consider the question. "Because if we don't help when we can, then what kind of species are we? Because your children deserve the same chance at life that ours do." The battle in space intensified as more Vorthok reinforcements arrived, but the human fleet had already achieved its primary objective. Over 6 million Zephyrians were now aboard Guardian Shield vessels, racing toward safe hyperspace jump points. The remaining population centers were being evacuated as quickly as possible. General Vox, commander of the Vorthok forces, stood on his flagship's bridge watching his supposedly invincible fleet being systematically dismantled by these unknown humans. Species after species had surrendered at the first sight of Vorthok power. None had ever mounted effective resistance. "Who are these beings?" Vox demanded of his intelligence officer. "Unknown, General." "They call themselves humans. Their ships are smaller than ours, but seem to absorb tremendous damage without being destroyed. Their tactics are unlike anything in our database." Admiral Torres watched the battle unfold from the Defiance's command center. Human casualties were mounting, but every loss was buying time for more evacuations. This was the essence of human warfare, not the quest for glory or conquest, but the willingness to sacrifice for those who could not protect themselves. The tide turned when Chief Engineer Santos implemented a desperate strategy. Using the Defiance's quantum computational systems, she coordinated a simultaneous attack by all remaining human vessels. 54 ships fired at once, their combined firepower focused on the Vorthok flagship. General Vox's command ship exploded in a brilliant flash that could be seen from Zephyr Prime's surface. The loss of their supreme commander shattered Vorthok coordination completely. Individual ships began retreating, their captains unwilling to continue a battle they no longer understood. "This is Admiral Torres to all Vorthak vessels," the human commander broadcast on all frequencies. "You have 30 minutes to withdraw from this system. Any ship remaining after that time will be destroyed." The threat was not empty bravado. The human fleet had proven their capability and determination. One by one, the surviving Vorthak ships engaged their FTL drives and fled into hyperspace, abandoning their conquest for the first time in their empire's history. As the last enemy vessel disappeared, cheers erupted throughout the human fleet. They had done the impossible, defeated a technologically superior force, and saved an entire civilization from extinction. But Admiral Torres felt no satisfaction in victory. Too many good people had died, human and Zephyrian alike. Prime Scholar Zith requested permission to address the human fleet. His message was broadcast to every ship, his words carrying gratitude that transcended species barriers. "People of Earth, you came to us as strangers and leave as family. You asked nothing of us except the chance to help. You risked everything for beings you had never met. Today you have shown the galaxy that strength is not measured in weapons or ships, but in the willingness to stand for what is right." The evacuation was completed 3 days later. Nearly 8 million Zephyrians had been rescued and were being transported to safe star systems where they could rebuild their civilization. The human fleet began its journey home, carrying not just grateful refugees, but the knowledge that humanity had passed its first great test as a galactic civilization. News of the rescue spread throughout nearby space. Other species, previously unknown to Earth, began sending diplomatic messages. The humans who had emerged from their dangerous homeworld to save strangers were being recognized as a force for good in a galaxy too often dominated by conquest and exploitation. Admiral Torres stood on his bridge during the journey home, reading reports from across human space. Earth's population was celebrating, their children having proven themselves worthy of the stars. More importantly, dozens of species were reaching out to establish contact with these remarkable Deathworlders who fought not for themselves, but for others. The age of human isolation was ending. The galaxy had heard Earth's answer to the call for help, and that answer had changed everything. Humanity had taken its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as protectors, carrying forward the values that had enabled their survival on the deadliest world in known space. The Deathworlders had come when called, and the galaxy would never be the same.